Hi, I'm Grace, and this is the first video of 2026, would you believe? So I thought it would be fun to sort of recap on things that I've made in the last year, especially because I wasn't really posting or making videos or anything for the majority of last year. So there'll be some things here that you haven't seen yet, like the jumper I'm wearing, and we'll get into the pattern and everything later. So yeah, this video we're going to go through everything that I made in 2025 for the most part. And we're going to look at some goals I have for 2026 and some specific projects that I want to do. I'm going to go month by month and show everything I made in each month of last year. I think that's the easiest way to go. And I'm probably missing some things. I've given things away. I've made random little things like scrunchies that I'm not really including. And I've made so many knit beanies that I wasn't bothered to gather them all up and bring them here. So, there'll be a few things missing, but we have quite a lot to go through. So starting off with January. January is always a bit of a slow month for me. I'm usually finishing off something that I started the previous year, one of which is this cross stitch kit that my dad got me for my birthday last year. It is so pretty. I never cross-stitched before this, and I thought it would be one of those beginner kits that have the design printed onto the fabric so that you know what color goes where, but no, it's, I don't know, I guess a regular cross-stitch kit. I don't know if they're normally like that, where it's like a blank dark blue piece of fabric, and I had to find the center and then count out all of my stitches, and it was really hard, but it was a really fun challenge, so I didn't really mind too much. It took me forever to complete. I did actually start it in April last year when I first got it for my birthday, and then I did maybe like a part of the bird's wing, and I messed up so many times that I got frustrated and just forgot about it. I just put it in a drawer and left it until December of 2024. So yeah, January was me just hyper focusing on this one cross stitch, and I spent like 3 weeks working on it. And yeah, it turned out really great. I really love it. The next thing I made in January, which I don't have with me because it was a gift, was a crochet replica of my friend's dogs. She has 2 labs, and she wanted me to make them for her mum. They turned out super cute. I don't remember what the pattern was called, so I'll just find them and link them in the description. That's all I finished in January. So moving on to February, the main project I worked on in February was my amazing Betty Boop corner to corner blanket, which I am still so proud of. I think I started it mid-Jan and finished it mid-February, something like that. And yeah, this took a lot of time, focus, and dedication, but yeah, I got it all done, and it turned out to be a queen-sized blanket. It's massive, that's why I'm not bringing it out now. I'll just put up a picture, but it's gorgeous and soft, and it was a free pattern, which again I'll link in the description. I used Lion Brand Basic Stitch anti-pilling acrylic for the whole blanket. I didn't want to spend a lot of money on wool, so I thought an acrylic, but then again I didn't want to deal with pilling, so yeah, I thought that one would be good, and so far the blanket's looking great. I had it on my bed for a while until I got Pippin and she started chewing it, so I put it away, but yeah, it's held up pretty well. The next thing I made in February was this applique mug rug. I don't really do many sewing projects. My grandma taught me how to sew when I was really little, and I used to make clothes as a teen, but yeah, I don't really sew all that often, but I do like to go to craft fairs, mostly with my grandma as well, and I'll buy a few sewing kits there. Most of the craft fairs that we go to are more sewing and quilting oriented, so there's a lot of sewing kits. And I love to pick up just these little things to fulfill my sewing needs, And yeah, it turned out really great. Another thing I finished off in February was my first ever completed knitting project, which was this lamb beanie. I used the Chunky Knit beanie tutorial from Passionate Kelsey to make this. Yeah, her video was so clear and helpful. It was a bit of a breeze. I mean, my tension's a bit whack in this hat. I can see some loose stitches and things, but overall, I think it's pretty good. I think it's just double-stranded Red Heart acrylic yarn, and then I crocheted the little ears to put on the side, and I brushed them out a little bit with a wool brush. And yeah, I really love this beanie. It's so squishy and warm and cute, and I was so proud of myself for actually finishing a knit for once. The last thing that I made in February was a crochet replica of my childhood dog. Not to put a downer on this whole video, but both of my beautiful childhood dogs passed away this year at different times, but we had a Beagle Cross Jack Russell, and he passed at the end of January. And so yeah, I just made this plushy version of him for my dad, because you know we all miss him and he's beautiful. So that's that one. And that was everything I made in February. So let's move on to March. So again, last year I was focusing on getting rid of some stash, getting rid of some whips. I have a lot of half-finished things that I didn't really enjoy. One of which was I had made this granny square and striped crocheted dress. So I had made these green and brown granny squares for the top, and then I had just crocheted around double crochet stripes for the skirt. And I thought it would be fun to make a dress, but it wasn't fitting properly. It was too big, the straps were too long, and I didn't like the look of it at all. So I had seen people actually cut their crochet and put a lifeline in and actually save it. So I thought I would give that a go, and it actually worked out really well. I turned the dress into 2 skirts. This is one of the skirts I made out of the top of the dress. I had some extra granny squares as well, so I just attached an extra row and added a ribbed band to the top, and then added this drawstring. And then I made the striped skirt out of the bottom of the dress. Pretty much did the same thing, cut it, made a lifeline, and then in that lifeline row I added a ribbed waistband and a drawstring. So I don't really like the striped one as much, so it's in storage waiting to be either given away or sold. And then this one I'm keeping because I think it's really cute. Another thing I made in March was another granny square skirt. This is the Square Up Skirt by Scump Stitch, I think, on Instagram. This is a pattern that I actually bought in maybe 2020 or 2021 as a crochet beginner, wanting to make my first ever wearable project. And I had started it multiple times and failed. I was not bothered to make all the squares. I didn't really have the right techniques. My tension was too tight, and so the squares were curling, and I didn't know why they were curling, so it was just a butchered project from the start. But I did eventually want to use this pattern. I didn't want to just buy it and then never make it. And also I wanted to use up this yarn, which is Burnout Softy Cotton yarn. It's like a 50-50 cotton acrylic blend or something like that. Yeah, I took some time, but I pushed through and made it, and I actually really love how it turned out, and I really like the colors. I would be interested in maybe making something similar to this, or maybe remaking this in like a purple. I really want more deep purple in my wardrobe. Purple's my favorite color, but I don't really have any purple clothes. That's that one. It turned out really beautiful, and I'm glad I put in the work to finish it. The last thing I have for March is this scrappy fox plushie. It's a bit different to plushies that I usually make. It's more like a classic style, and I really loved the scrappy wool. This was another kit that I got from a craft fair that I went to with my grandma last year. I got this one and another one to make an elephant, which I haven't gotten around to making yet, so maybe that's something I'll get to this year. We'll we'll see. But yeah, I really love how it turned out. I wanted something that looked more vintage, classic style, and I love the eyes that I found at Spotlight. He usually sits on my shelf back there, so I'll probably put him back now. All right, moving on to April. April is my birthday month, so I had made this wool shrug to wear to my birthday party. I went out for drinks with my friends, and my birthday is at the end of April, so it's kind of like starting to get cold. I wanted to still wear my nice outfit, but then have like a woolen something to keep my arms warm if it did get cold, or if we ended up walking around the city, you know, it gets chilly, it's very windy in the city. I used a video tutorial from TCD DIY on YouTube. They have so many unique and intricate crochet tutorials. And the one that I followed was really helpful and clear, and this worked up pretty quickly. I used Malbrigo Rios yarn and a 5mm hook, if anyone's wondering. The next thing I made in April was this beautiful pink hexagon hoodie. I used Passionate Kelsey's hexagon sweater tutorial, and then I used her hood tutorial to figure out how to make the hood. So 2 different videos combined to make this, and I used Premier yarns, some sort of gradient anti-pilling acrylic, whatever, and it turned out really cute, and I love it so much, and you can see me wearing it in my profile photo on YouTube. So May was a pretty chill month. I didn't make a lot. One of the things I made was this little weighted granny square chicken, which is kind of random. I saw one of these sitting in a local yarn shop, and I was already buying this brand of yarn. I had some scraps of this yarn. So yeah, I just felt like making a chicken. And now it's Luca's chicken, so it sits on his desk. Also in May, I started crocheting a tie for my brother for his birthday. That was a request that he had. He chose a nice deep purple color. It was this beautiful hand-dyed yarn from Skein Sisters, which was a blend of merino wool and silk. It worked up pretty quickly, but there's a lot of rows and it was a small gauge, so you know, it kind of took a bit of processing power to complete that one, but it turned out really nice and he loved it. That is everything I made in May. Like I said, it was a bit of a chill month. June is when I got the lovely Pippin, who is asleep on my couch right now. So I didn't really crochet much after I got her because she was taking up a lot of my time, of course. So I put in a lot of work to settle her in and, you know, spend time with her and train her and do all the stuff. And also I was worried she would try and eat my yarn while I was crocheting. So I just didn't crochet for a while until she got a bit more acclimated to her new home, basically. Earlier in June, before I got Pippin, I did make a blanket for Luca's Nonna. Again, it was a request. She was, you know, she's been a bit unwell last year and it was a really cold winter for her. So she asked for a nice, soft, colorful blanket and she chose out the colors and it was really fun. I used Bernat blanket yarn, so it was really thick, chunky yarn, and the pattern has a lot of holes, so it was, you know, it worked up really quickly. And then I had a bunch of leftover yarn that I used to make a crocheted sock monkey. This pattern is by Not Jaded Co. I went on a trip with some friends in June before I got Pippin and wanted something to make while I was there, so I thought I would use the leftovers to make a sock monkey to match Nonna's blanket, and she loved it as well. She thought it was super cute. And then I had more leftover Bernat blanket, so I did make another one. Yeah, you know, pretty random, pretty cute. You know, it's a good scrappy project. I like how it turned out, but I'm not going to keep that. I have enough plushies in my life, so I'll probably list it or give it away. At the end of June, I picked up crochet again after settling in the Pippin. That's when I started this jumper. I'm pretty sure the pattern is called Verglass or Verglass. sweater, whatever. I'll link it in the description. I don't really know who it's by. I found the pattern because I had originally just bought this yarn, which is Karen Latte Cakes Ombre or something like that. So I had found this yarn online and I really wanted to try it. So I bought a couple of balls and then I was like, what am I going to make with this? I just bought the yarn because it was pretty, which I'm going to try and hold back from this year, but you know, couldn't help myself. I bought it because it looked cool and then I had no idea what to do with it. So I started Googling what other people have done and I saw this picture by Chandler Designs, something like that. I saw this picture. I will link this person in the description. I forgot their Instagram handle. But yeah, I really wanted to make that. So I found the Instagram post, I found the pattern. It was a really fun make. The textured stitch pattern is really nice. Something different that I've never really tried before. I really love how it turned out. It's super fluffy and warm. That's all I made in June/July. I finished this off during July. Moving on to August. August is my grandma's birth month, so I had made this orchid tapestry for her. The pattern is by Ty Bailey, and of course, he makes really beautiful, intricate tapestry designs. And I thought the orchid was really nice for my grandma because she always had a really nice garden when I was little, and I think she likes flowers, so I just thought that would be fun. And I made mine this beautiful mix of pinks and whites, so it's really light and airy and pretty, and yeah, I thought it was cute. And it was a really fun, quick make, actually. I thought it would take forever because it's got like 100 rows, but it really didn't take me more than a couple weeks to make that. And it turned out beautiful and she loved it, so good stuff again. Another thing I made in August was from another sewing kit that I had bought at a craft fair with my grandma. It's this embroidered needle book cover by Hatched and Patched or something like that. Again, a really quick, fun make. It opens up and it has this felt for your needles and then a little pocket down the bottom. For September, I don't have anything to show. I don't think I really made anything in September, unless I maybe knit a hat or something, but I don't really remember when I made all of my knit hats, so September is blank. Moving on to October. October is when I started making videos. So you may know what I was doing in October. For the last couple of years, I've enjoyed making my own Halloween costume to wear to various parties. So last year was no different. I wanted to be a clown. I wanted to be cute. And I made a full outfit, starting with this dress I made. That was a completely free-handed dress. I didn't really have a pattern. I didn't really have a clue on what I was gonna do. So I just sort of winged it. You can see my videos on how I did that. And then I made this jester hat by Vandal Yarns, and it turned out beautiful. It really made the look, you know what I mean? Like, it just pulled everything together and made the look just so awesome. It was so good, and I love this hat. I want to just wear it on my day-to-day life. It's so cute. And then the last piece of my costume was this mini-me clown doll that I made. This was a last-minute addition that I set up and made the night before one of my parties. And I forgot who the pattern was by, but again, I'll link it. It turned out adorable. I mirrored the colors that I used in my dress, and then the stripe pattern on the hat is the same color order as my own hat, and now she sits on my shelf as well. And then keeping in the spooky October theme, I finished off October with these two ghost plushies that I made for a video. You can see that as well. This was a remake of my first ever pattern test that I did as a beginner, and I think he turned out so dang cute. They are both currently listed on my Etsy, but if they don't sell, I'm keeping this one. That is it for October. Moving on to November, we are getting there. Back in September, I really wanted to kick off my knitting and try a new project that wasn't just a hat. So that's when I started making my first ever pair of knit socks. And then it took a pause because I spent the whole of October making my Halloween projects and making videos about it as well. So it really took me a long time to finish these, but I did finish my knit socks in November. And I used the Summerlee Knits basic sock pattern, whatever it is. And yeah, they turned out lovely. One is most definitely bigger than the other because my gauge really tightened up as I got used to knitting. They're a bit wonky, but they're still nice and I love them. The entirety of December, I was making the crochet gifts. I don't really want to go through all the gifts that I made this year because I did just make a bunch of videos going through and making them. So if you want to know everything I made for gifts this year, you can go through my Vlogmas series, or I did also make a pattern video for the gifts that I want to make this year, so you can check those out if you want. Also in November, I was making my advent blanket, which is still not quite finished. It is so close. I have weaved in all my ends, I've joined all the squares, I just need to do the outer border and then it's done. So I'm hoping to finish that off next week. But this is what it's looking like so far. It is so beautiful. I love how it's turning out. It is soft. The colors are gorgeous. I do wish I went for the grey instead of the white to join the squares, but it still looks beautiful and it saved me a lot of money. So you win some, you lose some. And then the final things I made in 2025 were these two chunky knit beanies using the same video tutorial by Passionate Kelsey. I had some acrylic anti-pilling yarn that I really wanted to try, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. So I thought I would knit a beanie, and then I had a bunch left over, so I knit a smaller beanie. That is everything I made in 2025. I feel like I made quite a lot. So yeah, that's really awesome. I never really realized just how much I can get done in the year. I felt like this year was a quiet one for me, but clearly I still got around to making quite a lot of stuff. There were a couple of things that I wasn't really sure when I actually made this, like this velvet top that I wore in one of my videos. I don't remember when I made this. I just wanted to use up my burlap velvet yarn. And then I also have this knit beanie as well, which is using a really beautiful wool yarn. I don't remember when I knit it. It was before June because I wore it on my holiday. And then I made this little crocheted removable flower for it so you can pin a little flower to it. But that is everything I made in 2025. Now I guess we will close out that year and look forward to new goals and patterns for this year. I have moved to the couch for this next part because sitting on the floor was giving me mad pins and needles. So now instead of my beautiful shelf with all my trinkets and knickknacks, you get to see my messy ass flat. Enjoy. I was hoping you would at least see the Pippin sitting on her usual perch, but as soon as I sat down, she jumped off and went to her little bed. So, you know, I must be pretty stinky or something. I don't know, but she's peacefully sleeping on her own little bed now. And we are here to talk about my creative goals for 2026 and some projects that I want to get into this year. A few general goals I have for this year are to use up my stash. I don't want to keep buying yarn just because it's pretty and then figuring out what to do with it, you know? I think a lot of crafters get into that habit of seeing something beautiful and just buying it without thinking. So I need to sort of account for that now and use up some of the stuff that I've bought, which I'm actually really excited for. So I've got some really beautiful yarn in my stash and I'm excited to use it this year. My first stash busting goal of the year is to get rid of all of my faux fur yarn. You may have seen my yarn reorganization video. It was very satisfying and chill, and I got rid of a bunch of yarn and donated it to a local secondhand craft store, and a lot of it was really nice yarn. There were a lot of really like full balls of yarn, which is great. It wasn't like just scraps, obviously. But I did keep my faux fur yarn, even though I don't really want to buy more. I kept it because I want to try. I had the idea of making some fuzzy bucket hats and things, and I like to use fur yarn for like trims. So yeah, I want to use up all of my faux fur yarn this year, and that's going to be a video later on. Don't know when, but you will see it this year, hopefully, if you stick around. The next thing I want to do is I want to use up all of my velvet yarn. I actually really hate working with velvet yarn. I like how it feels, and the end result is usually nice, but working with it is a nightmare. You can't frog velvet yarn, or I'll be working with it and the fluffs will all just come off. It's a pain in the ass, even though I burn the ends of the yarns to avoid it, but it still sheds and becomes really difficult to work with. So I want to get rid of the little amounts of velvet yarn that I have left. I want to make maybe some scrunchies, maybe a top. We'll see. I don't know yet. But that is a goal, a stash busting goal for this year. My last stash busting goal for this year is to use up all of my advent scraps. I made my advent blanket and didn't realize that the pattern doesn't really need that much yarn. I made all the squares, and then from each 20-gram mini skein, I probably have 8 to 10 grams of each ball remaining, which is quite a lot of yarn. Like, let me show you. This is all of the leftover scraps of yarn from my blanket. So if anyone has any ideas on what to do with all this, if it's one big scrappy project or a few scrappy projects, please let me know. They are all 100% wool sock weight yarns. Okay, so that's my main stash busting goals, other than just generally using my stash rather than opting to buy new yarns for a project. Those are the specific yarns that I want to obliterate from my stash this year. Another goal I have this year is to try some new yarns that I've never tried before. Last year I was doing hand-dyed yarns, and I'd never worked with a 4-ply fingering weight yarn before either, so that was really awesome. So yeah, there's a couple of yarns in my stash that I've never tried before, and I want to give them a go, and I've seen a lot of good things about them. One of those being Lion Brand Feels Like Bliss. I have a ball in my stash that I want to use and try. And then I also have the Red Heart all-in-one granny square yarn that I really want to try. I've seen a lot of people using it, and it looks fun. And I know I'm late to the trend, but better late than never, I guess. Also this year, I want to make some more tutorials. I made one tutorial last year for my no-sew bear pattern, and that was really fun. So I want to make another one for the no-sew cow version of that pattern. And then I also have a messenger bag pattern that I made a while ago that I think would be really good for a video tutorial. The donut that I made for Pippin for Christmas, I will make a tutorial for that. Thank you, lovely commenter, who said they were interested in a tutorial for that one. And then I have a couple other tutorial ideas floating around that hopefully you'll see later on in the year. And now I have some more general goals. I want to knit some garments this year. I really want to knit a cardigan. I thought I would do it last year, but I didn't get time. And then I also really want to knit a top. I want to at least knit one top and one cardigan. Let's call it that. And then I want to knit some more socks too. So I want to knit wearables because knit clothes are just so beautiful, and I have so much beautiful yarn for it. So let's do that this year. Another thing I want to do is learn how to knit cables. So I'm hoping after getting a couple simple garments under my belt, I can learn cable knit. I really want a cable knit scarf. So that is a goal for this year. I want a cable knit scarf. And then next year maybe I'll make a cable knit jumper, which will be stunning. I'm so excited. My last goal that I have that comes to mind is I want to use up my kits. I have a lot of craft kits, not in the sense of those children's kits where you make random sparkly things. No, I have a lot of sewing kits from craft festivals similar to the needle book that I made and the mug rug. I know I have one for a drawstring bag, and then I have one for a sleeve, which is for either a Kindle or an iPad, which I'm hoping might be big enough for my laptop. If not, I'll use it for my Kindle. And then I also have that kit to make the scrappy elephant. So yeah, a lot of kits. People get me kits, I get me kits. I love sewing kits because I don't have to think. I usually don't have to cut out much fabric. All of what I need is in there and the pattern is already printed. So I'm a lazy sewer. I don't really have the space or the time to draft patterns and things, so this is my sewing fix. So yeah, I want to use up more of those, and I think it might be fun to do videos using up those kits too. Let me know if any of that is interesting to you. So that's pretty much all the goals that really come to mind for me. And now I have some specific projects in mind as well to achieve those goals. So one of them being, obviously, a knit cardigan. I bought the yarn for this last year and even made a few swatches, but I think I might redo those swatches this year since my knitting has changed since then. And I have a couple of chunky knit cardigan patterns in mind. Another thing I want to make this year is a crocheted quilt. I've been seeing them around Pinterest and Instagram, and they are stunning. And I have accepted the fact that I may never make a sewn quilt in my life, apart from the ones that I helped my grandma finish off. And by helped, I mean she told me what to do and I prayed. But the crochet quilts are really beautiful, and yeah, I want to try that. And if you saw my last video, you will know that I actually got a crochet quilt patchwork book for Christmas, which shows you how to make different blocks and things. So I want to try that out. I want to make a beautiful crochet quilt and make my Amma proud. Another thing I want to do is make more knit socks this year. I have a sock kit that I got from the yarn festival that I went to in September last year. I have a video about that too. You should go check that out. It was really fun. And then a few upcoming videos, a little sneak peek, if you will. I want to make my own crocheted labubu. I have the perfect yarn for it, and I'm gonna just wing the pattern because I couldn't find one that I really liked. I also want to do a crochet car makeover. My car is very boring and messy, so I want to make it look nice, and maybe if it looks nice, I'll keep it clean. I want to try the infamous 6-day star blanket that's been floating around the internet for the last year and absolutely took over everyone's feed. Again, late to the trend. Those are a few specific projects that I am really excited about, but I'm going to be making this whole year and I'm going to be recording it. So hopefully you will join me this year on my crafting journey, be it knitting, sewing, crocheting, bedazzling, apparently. We did that last year. Yes, we did. You should check that out too, if you want. That is everything I did last year and everything I want to achieve this year. I think it is pretty attainable, and I'm really excited to get my crafting on this year. So hopefully you will subscribe to be notified on when those videos come out. I usually attempt to post every Tuesday and Saturday, but I do work full time, so bear with me a little bit. That's all for today, so bye! There's the baby. The sleepy baby. Oh, I'm sorry. Say goodbye to the people. Bye!